closed session. So on item PE-2021/1, the vote was 4 yes, 1 no. And item PE-2021/2, the vote was 5-0 no. Okay. So now we have our, next up is the Patriotic Exercise. And so I'd like to invite Abigail Zarin. She's a 5th grader at Roosevelt Elementary to lead us in the Patriotic Exercise.
President Kendall, I'm sorry to interrupt. On the closed session report out, the vote that was 4-1, you need to identify the board members that voted 4 yes and 1 no.
We were wrong. We weren't sure about that. Thank you, Kirsten.
Okay, so, but I'm not the yes, no.
You need to identify which board members voted yes and identify which board member voted no. That has to have the name.
Or the shorter way of doing that is to say that the no vote was Trustee Mudd.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
And there is Abby Zarin. Okay. Hi. Hello, welcome. Would you like to, or you want to say a few words first?
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm Abby. I'm in 5th grade at Roosevelt, and yeah, and what I love about Roosevelt is like how we're all like community and like all the fun events we do. Like we are Roosevelt night and chili cook-off. And then what I'm looking forward to in middle school, since I'm going to be there next year, is all like the new classes I can take and all the new friends I'll meet. And yeah, so if you guys are able to, you can stand for the pledge. And I have my little imaginary flag right there, digital flag right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah. So right hand over your heart, place this digital flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. And if you're standing, you may be seated.
Thank you so much. Bye, Abby. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the roll call. Trustee Wong.
Here.
Trustee Reed.
Here.
Trustee Sarpangal.
Here.
Trustee Mudd.
Here.
And I'm here, Trustee Kendall. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Do we have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from January 12, January 15, and January 25?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January. Do I have to say all the dates? From January 12th, January 15th, and January 25th.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so now we're on to the section with public statements. So the first one is related to non-agenda items, and I'll read the instructions that go with it. Okay. So public statements. At the discretion of the Board of Trustees, the public may address the board on non-agenda topics and/or agenda items. If you choose to make a public statement, you will need to complete and submit the district's Google form for public statements. This can be found on the district website, www.burlingameschools.org. So you click on district, click on the Board of Trustees, and that links you to the form that's on the right-hand side. So then the moderator will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. If your comment is on an item that is not on the agenda, then you will be asked to speak during the public statements related to the non-agenda topics at the beginning of the meeting. If your comment is on an item that is on the agenda, then you will be called on to speak at the time of the agenda item. So right now we are at the section that is the public statements related to non-agenda items. Kirsten, do we have any statements right now?
Yes, we do. Currently, we have 2, President Kendall. The first one is Trisha Tayama. We will get her unmuted.
All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to express gratitude. So I am the parent of a 4th grader and a kindergartner. And one of the new additions to the 4th grade core literature program at my son's school was Bud, Not Buddy. He just finished reading it, and my daughter actually loved it so much we did it as a read aloud. And I just wanted to say thank you. It's been such a joy and refreshing to have an author with a different background, a different perspective, and such an award-winning, amazing book. And I know they've been able to incorporate that into each grade level, bringing just some diversity to the core literature that I really wanted to say thank you. And I hope that can continue across all the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Esther Allen.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you guys so much for allowing me to ask a quick question. So I have a first grader at McKinley and a 7th grader at BIS. And I know that one of the agenda topics is potential reopening and petitioning for 3 to 5th. But I wanted to know if there was any more insider information coming out in the next couple.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you right now.
And it's kind of just the same stuff. So I just wanted to see if you guys had any insight on that.
I'm sorry, we weren't able to hear the middle part of your statement.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
I wanted to see if there was any insight on the middle school opening and who would be the decision makers on getting that plan in place, and kind of not waiting for the next year to implement that. So I just, right now, what it seems like it's a lot of copy and paste from newsletter to newsletter from BIS. And so I just wanted to see, if you guys had some insight on that.
Okay, thanks, Esther. We're not actually able to have a discussion right now, but this district staff can follow up with you and tell you the right points of contact for how you can get more information. Chris, do you have any? Sound good? Okay, great. Yeah, so you can they can follow up with you on that. Thank you.
That was our last public comment, President Kendall, on non-agenda items.
Okay, great. So next we have the public statements related to the agenda items, and that will take place as we come to that point in the agenda. Item 12, statement of principal. We have a principal who is going to give a statement now.
Yes, Principal Paveo.
All right. Hi, Principal Paveo. Oh, he was there and gone. Oh, there. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for having me. I will make this somewhat brief, although it was a very exciting week for all of us. I feel fortunate that I get to do the presentation as we start to bring back students onto campus. I can report that from all the schools, it was a very, very successful reopening. We were all the principals and the staffs were so excited to have students back on campus. It just brought that energy that we had been missing. It also was remarkable to see how well the students were able to adapt to our new procedures. It was great to see how the procedures were rolled out and how well they were followed. It probably speaks to how the students have been living their lives since March of 2020, that they are able to line up so well and keep their masks on and generally follow all the rules that were set, the new procedures that were set at the schools. So in the past, since we've reopened, the principals have been busy communicating with staff, observing procedures, making tweaks here and there. But generally, there weren't major tweaks that needed to be made. Everything went very, very smoothly. And it's just fun to have people back into the classrooms. We continue to work towards next steps and continue to look at all our processes and communicate with staff and provide the safest route possible to this reopening. one of the most fascinating things about this whole process to me and to other principals is how much of a community event it has become, or a community. And by event, I mean, we've entered into this pact with our community to say we are willing to come back, but safety protocols and things outside of the school that are so dependent on us coming back are really important to be followed. So the principals have started to message out, the importance of not traveling during our winter break coming up. And so to avoid spread and avoid more closures, we ask that the parents and the parent community take the sacrifice of not traveling. Also, we continue to look and principals have continued to push for more vaccine, a quicker path to the vaccines coming up, and we any help that we can get in that realm would be most appreciative, as that could be a further game changer as we continue to move towards more students back on campus and a more comfortable working situation, which is the goal for everybody. We also are moving along with academic pursuits. All schools are kind of busy doing their iReady assessments right now, which is really, really important right now to see what kind of learning loss we have or target any learning that we need to go back to. It hasn't been as dramatic, at least in first looks, as we had thought it would be. So that's just speaks to how well the academic program was during the distance learning and how well our teachers were adapting to it. There still is some loss that we hope to pick up through our multiple tiers of support and our RTI teams, as well as the teachers just really drilling down. But we're just kind of in the early stages of our iReady assessment. So the work continues, but it was just a really, really exciting week, and really one that makes you proud to be part of the community because it was a full community effort.
Thank you. All right. So the next we have statement from Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Marla Silversmith. But we can't hear you.
Going to unplug the external mic. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening. As Mr. Paveo said, it was a magical week in Burlingame. I have a huge grin on my face. It was amazing to see and hear students and teachers and support staff and principals and everyone just coming together. It was great to hear laughter and learning going on in classrooms. And I just, it's really, really why we all went into this. And that was great to see and hear. I was able to stop in on some social emotional support groups, which were doing amazing things and making sure that kids are connecting. It was great to see these brand new kindergartners to our school and just learning the ropes. And, oh, this is where Wesley the Wildcat is, or the Hoover Hawk and the mascots and everybody that came out and just made it a really special opening. So that was really exciting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. Yesterday, we had another grade level meeting where we met with our professional learning supports, and we looked at what teachers needed within their classrooms and a lot of questions and support around that. We've continued to just be out at the sites. It's been, I think, a lot of fun for Superintendent Malpanitas, myself, and everybody else just to be in classrooms and really be present. So it's been a great week. It was, it's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it more.
Thank you, Marla. Next up, we have a statement from our Superintendent, Chris Malpanitas.
Thank you, President Kendall, and good evening, board and community. Two or three things on my mind a lot. So first of all, Ms. Silversmith will be going into the reopening and how it went in more detail. And I know that we heard Principal Paveo speak to it. I just want to thank all of our staff, teachers. You were so professional. You were so incredible. And I could see the shot in the arm that it gave all of us. Principals, it was a flawless reopening. I know we practiced a couple of times and got the rug pulled out of us right before we were able to get back. And but it showed that we've just practiced so much, and you all had it dialed in, and you took care of the safety and the well-being of your staff and your students. I was just so proud, and I actually couldn't have imagined the emotional impact. 26 years in education, and it's the first year that we hadn't seen students on our campus, and it was actually just it was very impactful to see them come. And so, it made all of the fighting to get there worth it. And so I just want to thank all the principals and all the staff. It was exactly what I think that we all needed to see, no matter how difficult the year. So that was incredible. Thanks is not enough, but that's all I can say at this point. The other item is, of course, vaccinations. I get questions daily about vaccinations and where are they? We are at Tier 1B. And of course, educators and people that work in schools are the top of Tier 1B. And we are there, and there simply just isn't enough supply in the county to begin. But as soon as they get their next shipment, schools will be starting. Other counties have announced that more broadly, like Alameda County. And although they've announced it and even suggested that they're taking appointments, they don't have any supply either. I think they've just done, as a county, maybe a better job at sending a message and having some PR. There are smaller counties that have been able to vaccinate. How do I know all of this? Because I've been advocating myself as well as with the trustees. A couple of us, Trustee Reed and President Kendall, actually met with our state representatives, and it was one of the 3 key points that we kept driving home was that we need vaccines for our teachers and for our professional staff working with children. So as soon as I hear a peep, as soon as I get a hint, I will be letting everybody know that it's time for us to be able to access our vaccines. And we've been advocating heavily for that. There was not just a rumor, but a couple of folks did get in early because one of our medical providers jumped the gun and had a couple of extras left. So those that were able to access that, that's great for you. It turns out that it was only a couple. I wish it had been more. And more generally available to everybody, but you're all top of mind as far as vaccines. We're just as anxious and worried about it, but I would ask everybody to be calm. The supply will come when it comes. The other good news is that there is going to be the entire northern state regional super vaccination site was announced to be opening in Oakland. So the Oakland Coliseum will be hosting the Northern California federal vaccination site, which will be actually doing mass vaccinations. And of course, the second one will be located in Los Angeles. The reason that that's great for us is that supply line is completely in addition to what the state is provided for vaccines. That is a direct federal supply, and it will be mass vaccinations, and it will be in operation and up as early as later this week. So more and more vaccine is starting to come through, and we will be the next step. So I will let you know as soon as we have more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Next, we have the statements of the board members. Trustee Wong, do you have a statement?
Sure. So I went to the owners meeting recently, and we'll be talking about some of those things later on in today's meeting. But one of the really exciting things coming soon will be that BIS, with all the improvements being made, they'll be adding artwork to the outside walls of the finger wings. So parents out there who know what I'm talking about, the area between the finger wings, you will not recognize. It's so gorgeous. And there will be a, kind of nature themed sort of these murals that everybody can enjoy. And they're actually collaborating with staff and students and a local artist about, the concept behind it. So I'm really excited to see that final product. And then yesterday I had the privilege to visit Roosevelt and tour around with Mr. Paveo and saw the children in classrooms and the teachers teaching. And I saw that, the teachers who didn't have students in there yet were all ready to go. The desks were all set up. Everybody is prepared, and it just was so exciting. And that first day I saw Trustee Reed's picture of her little daughter going in, and I actually started crying, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a little kid anymore. But it's so exciting that they were back. And I think I think I felt like the children where 2 times you were already told you were going to get this, and then it didn't happen. It was hard to believe until it really happened. So such a wonderful thing and so much relief. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Reed?
Hi, everybody. Did I turn my mic on? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So I just wanted to echo what we've heard already. A big, huge thank you to all of the teachers, the staff, and the administrators that made last Thursday happen. I know it was a bumpy road getting there, a lot of starts and stops, and I know it was very challenging and frustrating for the community, for the teachers, and for all of us. But it's really exciting to say that we were the first LCFF district in all of San Mateo County to start back in our hybrid model, which is huge. And I think we're actually one of the first in all of Northern California to actually be back. So it couldn't have been done without working together and collaboratively. I don't know if everybody else is watching what's going on in other districts in places like San Francisco and Chicago and Las Vegas, Virginia. There's so many things going on, and people are just working against each other. And I think it's a testament to all of us working together and being respectful and listening and being flexible. And it was amazing to know that all of the teachers were there on Thursday morning, and we saw the 3rd through 5th grade teachers helping, taking temperatures, bringing in the youngest learners. You could see the smiles in the kids' eyes. Like Trustee Wong said, I brought my kindergartner in, and you could see the tears in the parents' eyes for all different reasons. But it was really exciting, and I just wanted to thank everyone again. A couple of other things, like Superintendent Malpanita said, we had a chance to meet with some of our state representatives, our new state senator Josh Becker's team, as well as Assemblymember Kevin Mullen's team. We did discuss what happened around January 20th and continue to implore them to push for clear and consistent guidelines, science-based, logical going forward, so that we don't have something like that happen again. And then advocating for teachers' vaccines, as well as starting to talk about the 21-22 school year and what we need to do in order to get back to a normal school year once the vaccines come out. So we're hoping for more guidance from them on that. And we've kind of given them our initial input on what we need to happen. So I think Superintendent Malpanita will share more with us and the community on how everyone can support those efforts. And then, like Trustee Wong, I had the privilege, I actually got to visit 2 schools. I got to see McKinley and Hoover yesterday, and it was just amazing to see our largest school and our smallest school and the different ways and the creative ways that everybody has come up with and worked so hard to make sure that the process runs smoothly. I was just so impressed, and the same thing walking into some of the other classrooms that are ready for kids and ready to go, as well as the classrooms that were full of kids. It was just really, there was so much energy, and it was so exciting to be there. And then the other thing, the BCE update. So they had their readathon, and I'm going to open this up so I have the information. This was the most successful readathon they've ever had. They raised 48% more than last year, which was huge. It was over $218,000. And their year to date is at 1.9 million, which is ahead of where they were last year. So pre-pandemic, which is amazing. And so a huge thank you to all of the BCE board, parents, and everyone that's involved in making that happen. They have their annual gala coming up. It's going to be their first ever virtual gala. And that's going to be on March 20th. And it's going to be $50 a couple. So they're trying to get a lot of community involvement, and then they're going to do some smaller pre-parties and things like that. And then they will also continue to have their annual online auction from the 11th through the 21st. So they're just looking for people to donate cool, fun experiences and things like that. So that message has been out there. And then the only other thing is they, and as well as PTA Council, everybody is working on recruiting for their boards for next year. And so that's kind of the main focus going into this back half of the year, is just filling those seats. And that's it.
Thank you, Kate. Trustee Sarpangal.
Thank you, Trustee Kendall. I'll try to keep it brief because I'm basically going to echo what's already been said. Mainly, I just want to thank everybody involved, ranging from staff, including, of course, our teachers, and the parents who also have been understanding of the difficult and complicated situation that everyone has been in. And I haven't been able to visit all the schools yet. When the time is right, I'd love to be able to do that. But I did have the opportunity to go visit Franklin on Monday, and it was great to see the kids there and the teachers helping all the kids, and everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly. And obviously there will be hiccups here and there, but overall it's been really impressive that again everybody involved has done such a wonderful job to make this so far work well. So Principal Lawrence showed me around a number of the different classrooms and the outsides and the insides, and everything seemed to be organized very well. And most importantly, I hope that I could sense that different teachers had different levels of comfort, but we definitely appreciate that notwithstanding that, everyone was performing a very noble service and duty, and we all really appreciate it, because hopefully seeing the kids come back really made a big difference. I'll say that me personally, I actually probably underappreciated how much the kids missed going to school. My daughter's going back to school the last couple of weeks. I didn't really fully realize it, but to see how excited they were to go back to school actually made me feel really bad, because they were so excited about it. And so it really, at least speaking as a parent, aside from a board member, I really appreciate what everyone has done to sort of help make that happen. And we know that it's a challenging environment, but we're all trying to do what we can to do what's best for the kids. And so really appreciate that. And so finally, also again, like the fellow parents, appreciate the generosity with respect to your volunteering, the donations, the patience and understanding with respect to everything. And I think we all want to eventually get everybody back to school safely, and for our entire staff to be safe and get to the other side of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Trustee Mudd, would you like to give a statement?
Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. Hi. Oh, am I frozen again? No. Okay.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. I also attended the owners meeting with Florence, and Deepak and I also went to a master's in governance course, which we've been sort of doing together. But those are not as interesting as what really was magical about this week. Like the other trustees, I got to go to visit Washington, and I was so overwhelmed seeing the teachers and the kids back in the classroom that I'm going to do it now. I kept having these moments where I was getting choked up, and it was so impressive that it was so organized and so calm, and the kids were so engaged, and you could see how well prepared all of the procedures and routines were, and all of the hard work that the administration and the teachers and the principals and the parents educating their kids on making sure they wear masks. And it was all there, and they were so excited, and you couldn't see their happy smiles, but you knew that they were there because their eyes were squinting. And it was also the 100th day of school, so we got to see all those fun celebrations. And I was particularly impressed, and I've gotten a couple emails from parents about this, but just questioning how it would work. I was really impressed with the technology. So the teachers were so amazing with their laptops on their rolling carts, zooming into homes while also working with their kids. And I don't know if this is a term across all of the schools, but I loved that Washington was calling the kids roomies and zoomies. It just had such a made this craziness all feel a little bit sweeter. So I guess my biggest thing that I want to express tonight is the amount of gratitude that I have for all of the hard work that it took to get these kids back in a classroom where they belong, learning with their beloved teachers. And I know I know to all the teachers that are out there, I know this is so much work for you. So we're so appreciative. And I think that's it. It was so amazing to see them. And I could see them walking down my street going to Lincoln, and just these kindergartners with their backpacks on. It was such an amazing thing to see. So.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so
one more thing.
Oh yeah, one more thing. Okay, that's fine.
Sorry. We also participated in the COVID test today, which I'd like to thank the parents that have been organizing that. That I'm sure is also really reassuring for all the staff that's at the site. So.
Done?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so I want to echo what everybody is saying. The school that I went to was Lincoln. So I visited in the morning, and it was incredibly calm, so like just zen and organized. And to be that organized, that's coming from a lot of preparation, right? So much work was put into this. The kids they had their masks on, everyone was spaced apart, the doors were open, the windows were open, like everything was just amazing, and just so calm. And like the other trustees, it was a very emotional experience. I think we don't fully realize the weight of all of this has been on us, how much we've been weighted down. So yeah, it's been a very emotional week, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, so I'll just start crying again. But yeah, that was really incredible. And at the end of my visit, Ms. Afshar asked me if I wanted to see pickup. So I was like, okay. So I stood out by the gate, and the parents come, teacher just said, okay, kid go to parent, kid go to parent, and then it was done. And I was like, that was it. I mean, it was so organized and just like clockwork already. It had only been a couple of days. It was really amazing. So I'm just really impressed, and I want to echo our gratitude. And I'm just so glad that we've been able to do this in such a good fashion. Like we're really following all the protocols that we are supposed to be following to do this right. So I'm so excited for our children, and thank you to everyone who's made this happen. So as has been, I've been participating in the county COVID calls. I keep saying that I'm on those. I know some of the others are as well, and the San Mateo CSBA meetings. And I've been meeting actually with some board members from other districts in our county, as well as going with Kate and Chris to meet with the Mullins and Becker offices. And I'm just so glad that we are coordinating as a county and working together to really make this happen, have a united voice on issues like vaccination, and prioritizing that for the teachers, and looking towards next school year and making that happen. So I'm glad that we're working together as a county. No one's mentioned the town hall budget meeting, so I attended that as the trustee representative there. It seems like a million years ago, but yeah. And we will get an update at this meeting on our budget. And then also I attended a Jedi meeting, and I'm so glad that the Jedis have invited a board member to come. So we'll be rotating through, and I got to go to the first one, and I believe we're all participating in the Jedi book club. So we're each reading a book, and then we'll be meeting in March to discuss. So either caste or how to be an anti-racist. And it's been great to be part of that group as well. Okay, so that's the end of my statement, and we should move on with this meeting. All right, so next up is item 16, and it's board communication. Does anyone have any discussion they want to have on the San Mateo County of Education letter? Okay, hearing none. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is showing our appreciation to the Burlingame Rotary and Burlingame Library Foundation.
Thank you, President Kendall. So I'm making a recommendation that the board acknowledge the contributions of Burlingame Rotary and Burlingame Library Foundations for their donations to the district. I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that. One of the recommendations that was made when I came was to join and attend a couple of city and community organizations, which I've been doing. It's been virtual, but I've been doing it. And I have to comment here that the Rotary group, particularly Emily Beach and Cheryl Fema, who of course is our office neighbor in normal times, as well as a bunch of the other Rotarians, made me very welcome, and they've been lovely, and they've reached out a couple of times to help. They've been donating monetarily to the district for our procurement of more books, classroom and library books district-wide. And then this holiday season, they also reached out, and COVID is such a difficult time, particularly for our families who are experiencing more barriers than others. And they made sure that every one of our families, of our Title I students, received a gift card for the holidays, so that they had a little bit extra to help them get through. And it's just incredible that they've been able to do that and engage directly with the school district and directly for our students. And so I wanted to have the board recognize Rotary tonight, as well as the Library Foundation. And I believe we have Emily Beach and Cheryl Fema, who I mentioned, as well as Emily Matthews and Brian Nieder and Sarah Simpson and Jim Cannon with us this evening to be acknowledged. And of course, we'll also be sending Rotary our thanks in writing.
Okay. Are they coming into this part of? Are they going to speak or?
Is Emily Matthews there? Emily's been the wonderful president who's been onboarding me. Emily, are you with us this evening? If you can raise your hand, that way we could unmute you so that you could speak.
I don't see her on the list, Superintendent Mount Benitez. I believe all of the people that you named were going to be present, though. She could perhaps be under a different name on here.
Okay. Do they have the ability to raise a video hand in this format?
No, they do not.
Well,
I did see Emily Beach. I believe Sarah Simpson is here, and Cheryl Fema.
Oh, that's wonderful. Any one of them is great to hear from. Cheryl helped us out a lot too. She was a part of the holiday gift card committee. So anybody that would just like to be recognized on behalf of Rotary would be wonderful.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hello, President Kendall's, trustees, and fellow Rotarian and neighbor Chris. Emily sends her regrets. She had planned to join us, but turns out she had a conflict, another meeting to go to. It really was a pleasure to, I'm here today, not as your neighbor, but as the co-chair of the Rotary Community Service Committee. And Brian Nieder, the CEO of formerly Gate Path and now Ability Path, is also my co-chair. And of course, the schools and the kids are very, very important to us. And the school district has always been a very good friend and participant in Rotary. So we were, thank you for your nice remarks, Superintendent. And we absolutely wanted to do something. And it's such unusual times, and we felt so limited. So many of our members are, we're in the more dangerous age of 60, 70, 80, and we had to make the policy that we really have to minimize community service activities that would require us to have to go out in the community. So yes, we called Chris. Yes, that we felt that would be something special for the kids, to give them something that's their own, and a little something to help them through the holidays. So we love the partnership with the school district. I'm delighted that we just scoop up your superintendents as soon as they come. And on behalf of Emily, who really did so much of the legwork, Brian and I get to chair the committee and come up with ideas and then shepherd them a little bit. But Emily really puts her heart and soul and her time into making it all happen. So I'm sorry she couldn't be here, but please know you've got a friend in Burlingame Rotary, and we're happy if we could put some smiles on some little faces. And I have to tell you all, I mean, I was getting emotional listening to your trustee comments. What a special week this must have been. So thank you for being such a good neighbor, and thank you for doing the wonderful job you do with our kids.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you to Emily and Sarah and Brian. This is so awesome. We're so glad that you did this. And I got to see a presentation on it at the Burlingame Collaborative. And it's so great to see how everyone was coming together to work on this during this time and have a bright spot in the midst of all of this. We're so grateful.
Welcome.
Very much appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so I think we'll move to the consent agenda. Anyone has anything? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda then. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, second.
I can second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thanks, Steve. All right, and aye. So let's move on to item 19. Okay, so we have Jedi update, the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion update. Allison, I believe this is you.
So I first want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on our staff diversity. So in order to protect the privacy of our employees, the certificated and classified staff have been grouped together for this presentation. My first slide is going to show the staff broken down by gender identity. Female teachers currently dominate our staff, 242 females to 61 males, and less than 10 non-binary. So when our employee is first hired, they are provided a voluntary ethnicity survey. In this survey, they have the opportunity to disclose how they identify within a set range of ethnicity classifications. These are predetermined classifications and options that are taken from the personnel database that is used across all of San Mateo County for their employees. So as you can see, majority of our staff identify as white of nearly 60%. Our next largest group is our staff that identify as Hispanic with 21%, followed by our Asian staff at 11%, Filipino at 4%, African American at 2%, and with also 1% of staff declining to state and 0.3% other non-white. So previously there was a similar presentation done for students and their ethnic classification back in November. And I wanted to take this opportunity to show a staff to student comparison. But I want to also please keep in mind that this is a rough comparison that includes classified staff and certificated staff as a whole, and as well as our elementary and middle school staff as a whole. So in the future, I am hoping to be able to return to do a more in-depth breakdown of the classified staff and the certificated staff as two separate presentations. But to go forward, you can see that our staff are in orange and our students are in blue. In regards to those that identify as African American, our staff are at 2% while our students are at 1.1%. Our Hispanic population, we have our staff at 21% and our students at 12%. And our population that identifies as white, we have our staff at 60% and our student population is at 46%. So because staff are provided a more in-depth classification within the Asian ethnicity, I have provided the breakdown of staff and how they identify within the Asian culture and their ethnic classification. So this is the same breakdown that was also shown earlier in the November presentation for our student population. One thing that I would actually be interested to see is a similar breakdown of our Hispanic classification. I would appreciate a more thorough look at how our Hispanic community, staff, and students identify themselves. So I took the Asian classification and I compared it to our students, since we already had that data. And you can see that in regards to our Vietnamese, our staff are currently at 2.9% and our students are at 2%. For Korean, they're at almost 12%. Korean as a student, 6%. Japanese, 17% staff identify as Japanese and 7% for students. In our Indian, they are 8% for our staff, 16% for student. And our Chinese is 53% for our staff and 39% for our students. I know that's a lot of information all at once, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Do we have any questions?
Comment. Thank you for putting that together. It was really helpful to see the student teacher ratio.
Yeah, also I'd say thank you. And just interesting that the only category with staff lower than students was Indian. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. That's really great to see, and I know you're going to keep iterating and bringing back more discussion on it. It would be nice to also see like the pie chart of the students next to the staff, just for easy comparison, you know. But I think we have it in previous presentations that we could also look up ourselves. So
yes, it was at the November 10th meeting, but I would definitely be happy to come back and present again.
For those of us who don't remember. Yeah.
Definitely.
Can I ask a quick question? So all of this information is super interesting, and I know sometimes we get questions from parents and things like that on some of these different topics. Is there a database somewhere where you save this information, or is there a link where we could send people that have these questions that are interested in looking at this data, where it's all kind of housed in one place?
So this is data that we have to report to the state. So in regards to our students, when they are entered into PowerSchool during registration, they have all of that data, and then that data is sent to the state. In regards to being able to actually like click on it to view it, I don't know if there's anything published on our website that has that specific information, but I don't see why we couldn't possibly put our presentation somewhere on there. And in regards to the staff, so the staff, when they're first hired, I have a set database that all of San Mateo County schools use, and I'm limited to what I am provided. So I've already put that nudge out to San Mateo County Office of Ed of, could we expand it? What would that, you know, of course they referred to me as one of the first ones that ever asked that. But, you know, being from the Hispanic community myself, I would love to be able to see a more in-depth look at, you know, how do you identify? So that's also something I would love.
Yeah, awesome.
And I just one question. Can you speak a little bit to what, is the ultimate goal here to sort of have a teaching or a faculty and staff that mirrors our community?
Great, I love that. Yes, definitely our main goal. So this is definitely our sounding board, our jumping start. Our main goal is to bring a more diverse community into our staff. I mean, I think it's very, very beneficial for our students to see themselves within the teachers, classified staff, certificated staff, administration, even the district office staff. So as part of my goal, working with Jedi, getting a ton of feedback from them, a ton of great information from them is just helping lead me and giving me more ideas of where can I recruit? What can I look for? Things like that. So I have presented to the Jedi group an idea of on every job posting, putting a diversity statement. So letting the public know that we are a school that is looking for a more diverse community. We might not have it right now, but we're looking for it and we're open to it and we want you to come and apply to us. So right now with Jedi Group, I'm working with them. So that hopefully will be coming down the pipeline soon.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Allison.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments or? Nope. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So now item 19.2, and I see we have Dr. Spencer here to speak about the summer programming and cost proposal.
Thank you, President Kendall. And good evening, Burlingame community and Board of Trustees. My name is Dr. Joelle Spencer. Tonight, I will be sharing with you the BSD summer programming and cost proposal for summer 2021. And yes, that does mean summer is right around the corner, even though it seems like it may be a little bit far away. In just a broad overview today, I will be presenting 3 separate in-house programs. The first is extended school year, second, step up to kindergarten, and third, Burlingame Summer Academy. And of course, with everything we do in Burlingame, we always align our work toward our district's vision and mission to prepare our students for their future. And just a side note, we have a few pictures from this past summer in our presentation tonight, so I hope you enjoy. And they do include mask wearing, so that's an important note. Okay, so moving on to our first program, ESY, or Extended School Year. ESY is offered to special education students who meet specific regression recoupment criteria through the IEP process. So it's a special education specific process. The program is designed to target IEP goals and help students maintain the skills that they learn throughout the school year. Our ESY program is projected to run 4 weeks in length, June 21st through July 16th, 8:30 to 11:30. And moving on to ESY staffing and cost estimation. The students identified as eligible for ESY often require intensive and specialized support that is sometimes delivered by support staff, and also a classroom environment with a very low student to teacher ratio. I've projected this staffing layout here, which includes 3 special education teachers and a variety of support staff. Recently, I worked with CSEA to revise, well, CSEA and HR, to revise the OT work year to align with ESY, which has amounted in a slight cost savings, which is wonderful news. We are also required to provide transportation to students if the program is not located in their school of residence. So I've included transportation in there as well. So the total cost estimation for this program is approximately $24,000. Okay, our second program, Step Up to Kindergarten. This is actually the 4th summer that we've hosted this program, and it's been increasingly successful. It's really fun to see some of our students that have participated in the program on campus and doing quite well. The program is offered to students who have registered for kindergarten or TK, but did not attend formal preschool prior to enrollment. We will be collaborating with our current TK teachers to identify any students who may require additional support or a supplemental during the summer, and extending invitations to them as well. And based on previous year's feedback, we moved the dates of this program a little bit closer to the start of the school year. And we're projecting the dates to be July 6th through August 4th, or August 6th, sorry about that. Okay, and this is a program that is typically contained in one classroom. So we are projecting, again, 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional to help out. And the estimated cost for that program is about $8,300. Okay, so I'm sure this one is of interest to everybody. So this is our third program that we're proposing tonight, the Burlingame Summer Academy, and I thought that had a pretty good ring to it. So that's a new program name. And kind of the vision for this program, the focus will be on review and reteaching of skills that were taught throughout the 2020-2021 school year, and also integrate social emotional coping strategies through structured activities. Historically, our enrichment summer programs have been mainly for first through sixth, well, incoming first through sixth grade students. We are planning for that grade range, but we are considering the expansion to middle school depending on the availability of staff. Just a little bit of background. Last year, we did revise our typical summer program as a result of the closure of Camp Galileo just for last summer. And this year, we wanted to continue a focus to address learning loss. And also the in-house programs really work well to employ our own BSD teachers when they're available. Okay, and this program is projected to be 4 weeks in length, July 12th through August 6th. And we will have both morning and afternoon sessions. This is kind of a tricky one to explain to you all. So I put a cost projection together for 8 classes, 8 in the morning and 8 in the afternoon. So we will have to stay very nimble as the end of the year closes, and really survey our staff to see who is available, who isn't, and then secure a range of grades, determine our class size, and I'm sure COVID will definitely play into that scenario as safety measures are rolled out, and then also hopefully we're in a better position than we are currently. For this program, I've included transportation costs. We have historically provided transportation to and from summer programs for our low-income students. And our total projection for this program would be just over $100,000 for 8 classes in the morning and 8 in the afternoon. So as part of this program, we will be offering Title I student scholarships and priority enrollment. And thereafter, enrollment will be open for the public to apply. And we're projecting the costs will be approximately $500 per student for the half-day program. And just so you know, that's pretty cheap. It's just under $9 an hour for your students. So we're not making a profit on this. And if there are any residual dollars, they would be redistributed back to cover the cost of the program or student scholarships. We will also be providing an option on their enrollment form for families to donate to provide additional scholarships for other students, which was actually Assistant Superintendent Silversmith's idea. So that I thought that was a great idea. And lastly, as part of this proposal, I'm hoping to secure 2 administrators to help run the program. And we really like to seek support from our current staff and identify any aspiring administrators to help out with any programming. I think it's a really great way to get their feet wet, and a lot of well, some of our staff have their preliminary administrative credential, and again, it's a great opportunity to further our own staff's development if they're interested in a particular area. Okay. So the total cost estimation for these in-house programs is approximately $140,000. And we really wanted to use this as the base of our programs and expand as we're able to. Again, I mentioned earlier, we'll have to stay nimble as our COVID situation evolves. And I think we're really used to that as a community by now. And it's been wonderful to see our community and our staff work together to rally despite our circumstances. So, I'll leave you with one of my favorite photos from this past summer. It was adorable, but I was wondering if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, can I ask a question? So Joelle, what's the transportation situation like? Are you actually using buses and you can only put a couple of kids on a bus at a time, or individual Ubers, or what are you doing?
So currently we are using a program called Hop, Skip, Drive, but that's actually for a very small number of students. We did a transportation cost analysis earlier this school year, and they were a very competitive company. So I would imagine for ESY, we would likely continue to use them. They are a car service, so they have one to two students per car. And we are able to effectively do contact tracing if there is any positive test result. And then for the larger programs, we would likely need to contract a bus service. I have been speaking with some of my colleagues that are also directors in other districts. Seems that it depends on the company, but they are using every other seat in a bus, and also pulling down the windows. So we would definitely engage with the transportation company to make sure there's any procedures that need to be followed, and make sure we're reinforcing that with our community members that are participating.
Are there other questions?
Dr. Spencer, I had a couple questions, and I am going to apologize in advance because I don't know what is going on with our internet, but I actually got kicked out of the meeting for a little bit there. And so you might have addressed this, and so I apologize, but I had some questions that I'd written out. So for the Summer Academy, who can go to this, and how are they offered a spot? And what will the scholarship application process be?
So we are looking at incoming 1st through 6th grade students, and considering expanding the program to 7th and 8th grade if our staffing allows. For the scholarships, we would identify our Title I students in the district and offer them a priority enrollment. So basically they would get first announcement, and we would make sure we were reaching out several times to make sure they have access to the enrollment process. And we've identified some funding specifically for those scholarship spots. So historically, a few years ago, we would offer scholarships to Camp Galileo for our Title I and or EL populations. And we typically secured about 125 spots I will say last summer, we were in the midst of COVID. It was a very new situation we were in, and we weren't able to secure that many spots. So I'm pretty curious to see this summer what type of response we get from the community, but I think it will be a positive.
Great.
Thank
So
you. Are there other questions? Well, I want to say thank you for such a thoughtful program that you've put together. I know this is going to be at the top of a lot of people's minds right now, and I hope you are able to expand it. But yeah, thank you. It's really incredible what you're doing. So this is an action item, so we will want to vote on it. Do I have a motion to approve the summer programming and cost proposal?
I'll make a motion to approve the summer programming and cost proposal.
Okay, the motion's made by Trustee Reed. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and the second is Trustee Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Spencer. Okay, so our next on our agenda is item 19.3, the potential expansion of waiver to include grades 3 to 5. Kirsten, do we have any public comments?
We do, President Kendall.
All right.
Do you want them to go first?
I think we probably will do the presentation first and then the comments. And then the discussion.
Okay.
For me.
Unless trustees have a different opinion. Nope. Okay. So this is Assistant Superintendent Marla Silversmith.
Great, thank you. Tonight I'm bringing back our original waiver that we submitted when we went to Purple, which talks about our reentry for TK through 2nd grade and our special day classes through 6th grade. Looking at the option to expand that for grades 3 through 5th going forward. You heard a lot about the great reopening of school, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. It was great that you all were able to see students on campuses, as were cabinet and the leadership team. So I don't know if there's anything more specific that you'd like to do. We would want to do a phased in approach, bringing back grades 3 through 5, looking at coming back within the next 2 weeks is what they asked, week and a half to 2 weeks is what they're asking for right now. So that would be, the earliest would be February 22nd. I think you're muted, Ms. Trustee, or President Kendall. I don't think you can unmute.
Oh, there. Did that work? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, President Kendall.
All right. So do we have clarifying questions before we hear public comment and then we'll discuss?
The one clarifying question I have, and I know Superintendent Montbonitas and I have talked about it a little bit. I know we've heard some questions about BIS in the middle school. Can you just clarify, because I want to make sure we know the understanding is that there is not a waiver for middle school, junior high, high school at this point in Purple. Is that correct?
So the waiver process is specifically for TK through 6th grade. Our 6th grade is actually included with our middle school. Every district does that differently. If you add 6th grade to your elementary level, it's actually considered elementary. Actually, you can add all your grade levels through 8th grade to an elementary program, and then they are then considered elementary. But because we have a separate standalone middle school, they actually follow the secondary protocols in the state. Technically, we could split off 6th grade, but the way that middle schools run is that their classes and students are incorporated with one another. And they have a mix of both single subject and multiple subject teachers. So the board did approve their reopening hybrid plan. It was a revised plan that was put forward to the board, the revised one, I want to say last October, unless one of you tells me it might have been November. Sorry, my memory's a little foggy. And their new hybrid was unanimously approved to start once we are 5 days in red. So that's the current approval that the middle school is operating under, and that program it went from the shorter classes. It met the desire of parents to have more academic time. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are 7 full periods of instruction. And then Wednesday is going to be slated to be the hybrid day where half the students are on the campus in the AM and half in the PM for community building and targeted instruction as a group. So they would sit through a full 2.5 hour period of that time. So once we're in red for a full 5 days, that will be the plan for BIS until such time as either the situation improves or some of the health guidelines change or we reassess. In other words, something like vaccines. Like if vaccines were to come, then it might change the dynamic enough. But that's their approved hybrid plan at this point.
And there's no approval process once the county's in red. We don't have to send anything to the state or the county, or there's no.
No, you've already taken action and you already approved their plan. Okay. I'm sure the way that the map is changing right now. So it changes on Tuesday. I don't know if anybody looked today. The blueprint map, our stats did change. So we are now 2 of our 3 criteria are actually in the red as of today at noon. The one that's still not in the red range is the adjusted case rate. But the other 2, which is our health equity quartile, as well as our positivity rate. So the positivity rate fell down to 3.8%. The health equity quartile went down to 6.5. So the only one that's not in the red category now is the adjusted case rate. And the way that works is since it adjusts on Tuesday, when that change is made, it's possible that we've actually met those criteria for any of the 7 prior days. And so sort of like what we found out for the TK through 2 coming back, when we had fallen below 25 per 100,000 adjusted case rate in purple, we had actually been in that status for a number of days. And so we could count some of those days. So it's likely that when we find out on a Tuesday that we're in red, that we've actually been in red for a number of days. Since they only update it once a week, that's just sort of the way it works right now. But when we are in red, then that's the next step. Is the approved plan is to come back in the hybrid model.
Perfect. Thanks.
That's for BIS. I'm sorry. I know that was a long explanation.
Okay, if there are no more questions, why don't we have the public comments and then we will discuss and make a motion.
Okay, President Kendall, the first up is Amy Tovar.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks for letting me comment. I'm so glad to hear how well everything went for the kindergarten through 2nd. I really hope that you will extend the waiver for 3rd through 5th grade. I think that, so many of our public officials are talking about how in-person instruction can be done safely. And I know that my 3rd grader would really benefit from being back in person. And I just really encourage the board to, with all of the success that you saw with the younger grades, to please extend the waiver for 3rd through 5th. I understand that a waiver is not available for BIS, but I also really encourage you to take another look at that hybrid plan. I do not think that 2.5 hours a week is enough once we get to red to have waited all of this time and then to only have 2.5 hours a week in person. I really think we can do better. I understand that there are obstacles and challenges, but I really think that a lot of the community and the parents are willing and able to help think through other options. And I just really hope that you take another look at ensuring that our kids are going to be instructed in person safely whenever possible. And to me, a 2.5 hour slot just per week feels like it's not doing enough, and that once we get to red, we can't just focus on the elementary students. We have to look at our middle school students as well. So in addition to approving the waiver for 3rd to 5th, I hope that we also prioritize having a community-wide discussion about how we can do better for BIS. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Next up is Shannon Robinson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking my comment. Also excited that the kids are going back. We're very grateful that that's happening. So thank you so much. I have a 5th grader, so I'm very focused on the elementary with an eye towards BIS because I know we're still going to be in trouble next year. But first, I did want to say that distance learning actually went far better than I would have expected to go this year at Hoover. My son had a very, very good experience. I do know that's not the case for all kids, so I am just speaking for my own family, but he is engaged, he is learning, he's feeling connected with his classmates, with his teacher. He gets to ask questions all the time. He's in breakout groups. I can hear what's going on. It feels like school, and that's going well. But we still do believe that the academic rigor and the need for social interaction definitely falls short of what can be accomplished in the classroom. So we firmly do believe that getting them back is what needs to happen. But I also want to raise my concerns about the plan, the hybrid plan that we have going back. So yes, it's better than BIS, and we have 2.5 hours a day, but these kids right now, especially my son, he's 6 hours connected to a teacher and students and very engaged all day long. And moving to a situation where he's going to be in the classroom and all these kids are going to be in the classroom for 2.5 hours with their teacher, which is great. But then they have no connection from the time he gets out of bed until he goes to school at 12:30. Yes, he'll have a little bit of work to do, but otherwise he's going to be isolated. He's going to be lonely. He's going to be bored. And I think that they're going to slip much further behind. I think academically, it isn't a good plan. I actually think having them do distance learning for our family would be a better situation than going back for 2.5 hours a day. That said, I think it's really sad that these kids are so isolated. So we would have him go back to school, but we are questioning if it's possible at all to have the kids Zoom into the classroom for the time that they are at home. So it's happening at a lot of schools. That's the plan for BHS. And I know it's a little trickier for the teachers, and I know it's not, I know they want to be super engaged with the kids while they're sitting in the classroom, but it does mean that the kids, when they are at home, they are actively engaged in school. They are actively doing their work. They are accountable. They have to show up. They have connection to other children. They have connection to their teacher, and they're not just sort of lost roaming around their home the way that they were back in the spring, which really didn't work for anyone. It was such a bad situation, and I really feel like we're taking a step back into that situation. It does feel like there's ways that that structure could happen. I know that, you could do a week on, week off, because what you don't want to have is like every kid who's going in the afternoon, if that's what math and science is, that they always get math and science, but there are ways to tweak the schedule, whether it's kids are week on, week off, or the schedule is week on, week off, and where it flips.
Okay, I think we lost Shannon.
I know, President Kendall, the timer went off and ended for public comment period.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. And our next comment
is Patrick Carney.
Okay.
Technical difficulty, give us one moment.
That's fine. Hey, Patrick. We can't hear you. We still can't hear you.
Patrick, do you have your laptop muted by chance? Okay, since he seems to be having technical difficulty, we'll go to the next public speaker, which is Todd Anderson, and we'll circle back to Patrick.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. A little bit of echo here. Trustees and superintendent, I want to take this time to thank you for all your hard work and time at getting the TK through second graders back. As a parent of 2 third graders, I'd also like to voice my support for the waiver for 3rd through 5th grades. For us, distance learning has not met our kids' needs, and we are currently supplementing both humanities and math. So anything to get our 2 boys back into the classroom would be greatly appreciated. The timing that I heard earlier of sometime later this month or perhaps early March would be most appreciated in our household. I'd also like to echo Amy's comments earlier about BIS. As a father of a 7th grader who will have spent more time distance learning at BIS than actually in classroom at BIS, anything that we can do to get them back more than the current hybrid plan has been laid out for just half the day on Wednesday. I think we have creative solutions that we could employ. I would be more than willing to help work to make those solutions a reality. So I would just like to offer that up and my support for getting BIS back faster. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Next up is Patrick Carney.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, I got my mic fixed. So I teach 5th grade at Roosevelt School, and I want to thank the board members for all their work during this really difficult year. The teachers and principals have worked so hard to get our schools prepared for students to return. And we have many safety measures in place. We've been working on a lot, and it's been great to see. But myself and many other teachers were very surprised to hear that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students may be returning to the classrooms in the very near future. We don't understand why we wouldn't wait until at least the teachers have been vaccinated, or the cases of COVID are much less in the Bay Area. While our distant learning isn't always ideal, it's working for most students in the upper grades, as parents can tell you. We need to wait a little longer before we can teach in person. In January, we had cases of COVID-19 at our school sites. Both adults and children had to be quarantined. This happened with a really small number of people at our school sites. With the return of 3rd through 5th graders in our classrooms, we will have many classes that will have 12, 14, or even 16 students in our rooms at a time. This is very different from the K-2 grade classrooms. They have a small number of students in person. If I walk around Roosevelt, I can see some classes have 5 students in them, like 8 at the most at one time. Having more students at our schools, it's going to be really difficult to keep people at 6 feet apart. I've talked to some teachers that said they're not going to be able to keep their students 3 feet apart. This is not a healthy place to have people in. I'm speaking on behalf of many teachers and staff members. We want students back in our classrooms. The reason we teach is to help students learn in person if possible, but we do not feel safe under these conditions. This is not the time to be opening up our schools for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. And any board member that would like to talk to me more about this issue or the upcoming hybrid schedule for the upper grades, my Zoom door is open and you know how to contact me. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. Next up is Jed Clevenger.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it. First, I'd like to say thank you for opening TK through second grade. We have a 5-year-old and a 3rd grader here in the Roosevelt area. We've heard many wonderful stories tonight. Really appreciated the comments from the board and from Matt Paveo. Thank you for sharing all that great stories so far. Second, I want to acknowledge that this is very tough. I mean, to Patrick Carney's comments here, this is a really tough time for all of us, for teachers, for administrators, for parents, but most importantly for the kids. We've never lived through anything like this before. Third, I want to extend my support for extending the waiver for 3rd through 5th grade. I worry about my 3rd grader, Madison. She's done well academically in this distance learning, but socially, she's a changed kid. She wants to see her friends, she wants to see her teacher. And I think the cost of not being in school outweighs the risk. I think we have a safe plan. I think we have protocols in place. We've seen a lot of success here. There is science and data that supports that kids are not spreaders in situations like this across the nation. There's a lot of data that supports this. So I'd like to advocate to pass this waiver, get back to school, and then to the point of the parent that spoke earlier, think about how to extend our hours for the kids at a future date. But let's get started, and let's get our 3rd to 5th graders back in school, and then we can work through it together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jed.
Thank you. Next up is Vivek Jain.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much to the trustees and the superintendent for allowing me to make a brief statement and a reflection. My name is Vivek Jain, and I'm a Franklin Elementary parent. I'm also a doctor at San Francisco General Hospital, and I'm an infectious disease specialist. And I've been helping lead our COVID-19 response during the pandemic. I'd like to really express my gratitude to our incredible Burlingame teachers and principals for their amazing work supporting our kids through this whole difficult year, and really for achieving such a successful initial reopening. I'm here today to give my strong support to the board in favor of amending our waiver to allow grades 3 through 5 to be reopened immediately for in-person learning in the new hybrid plan this month. And I'd like to share that scientifically, I feel really encouraged by a lot of recent national United States data and CDC guidance that school districts that have remained open during the most recent wave have really done remarkably well and have had remarkably little problems with COVID when they have adhered to the basic principles and pillars of the guidance of student masking, teacher masking, hand hygiene, distancing using cohorts and spacing, and all of which our Burlingame plan really embodies, and our plan is really doing a great job of. And further, I'd like to give gratitude to the parents and the school system for standing up an additional optional COVID testing program for the kids that will have the chance to further improve our operations. Great example of our community coming together to help the school do more and gain extra capabilities. And lastly, I want to share my strong beliefs that that kids at all ages really benefit from the wonderful social interactions that they can have with each other and with their teachers in-person learning. And for us to get back to a place where all our kids and all the grades have that option is just really crucial for their well-being. I think it's important to give kids right now the option for distance learning if they want to choose that, but it's really crucial for us to build on the success of our TK through 2 reopening to take the next step for an immediate grades 3 through 5 reopening. I think our town is really leading the way in the Bay Area with this successful reopening, and we should really take collective pride in this achievement. And so I'd like to strongly encourage the board to help grades 3 through 5 reopen immediately, and as a town for all of us to do everything we can to support our teachers, our schools, and each other. And I'd like to also just offer myself in any capacity in my role as an infectious disease person to the board for anything you all need during the reopening. I think we'll continue to get through this as a town, and I know our kids are going to do great during the reopening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you. Next up is Mark Haberek.
Hello, and thank you. What has been really confounding to me and a lot of parents is that returning to in-person schooling should be based on the underlying COVID community spread risk. In San Mateo County, you've seen a relatively low spread of COVID, yet some schools have reopened and some have not, despite being in the same community. It's like the schools exist in two totally different worlds. The underlying reason of why these differences exist no longer seems to be based on public health reasons or safety protocols, but more about the stance and influence of the CTA on public schools, with the CTA arguing that in many jurisdictions, a return to school is still deemed as unsafe. We've all read the data conclusively demonstrating that schools are not a significant COVID spread vector. Virtually all experts, including the CDC, the WHO, the Academy of Pediatrics, Stanford, UCSF, the San Mateo County Health Officer and Department, are all saying kids should be back in school. In-person education is essential, and the benefits far outweigh the small risks. UCSF recently published a letter recommending an immediate return to school. It's actually a really good letter. I encourage anyone, everyone to read it. But it not only highlights what our kids have lost in educational attainment and social development, but also shows the ugly side of what UCSF is seeing in the hospitals. Mental health issues, depression, anxiety, suicide, child abuse, all directly related to children being out of school for so long. These facts, coupled with a relatively good shape that San Mateo County has always been in through this pandemic, the impending vaccines for teachers, proper safety protocols being put in place, and the CTA as an organization across California is still maintaining that returning to school is unsafe. This stance is really becoming increasingly untenable and indefensible statistically, scientifically, and morally. I believe we should immediately expand the in-person learning waiver to grades 3 to 5 and go back to the drawing board on the BIS return to school plan. The 2.5 hours once a week for in-person instruction is woefully inadequate and should be immediately addressed. Finally, I think it's imperative that parents get full assurances that there will be a return to school in the fall. This clarity will really help stave off students from leaving the district, and for sure will help fundraising efforts for the BCE, which will become even more critical for ameliorating BSD's budget issues. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Next up is Michelle Geddes.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. And thank you, trustees and Superintendent Mount Benitez. I know we've had many an email correspondence these past couple of months, but I'm here tonight as a Burlingame parent of a 4th and a 5th grader. And I just want to make public comment in support of the submitting the waiver to bring the 3rd through 5th graders back on campus. I'm also here as a dedicated public servant and essential worker. I am part of the team in San Francisco that's opening up mass vaccination sites for these essential workers, including teachers and educators. And even this morning, we announced that we will be opening up vaccine appointments for phase 1B starting on February 24th. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just keenly aware of the challenges that San Francisco is going through with its school district and its mayor and the public. And I'm so grateful to be part of this Burlingame community. And I think I echo what Trustee Reed said earlier, and just that this community has really come together, and we should be proud of ourselves for leading the way in the Bay Area for a successful school reopening. I just feel that each day that we wait on submitting the waiver is going to be a learning loss for our children. We have heard from teachers at our school that some of our 4th and 5th graders, 6 to 8 kids a day, are not finishing the school day. And we just really need these kids back to a structure with expectations that come along with the school day. So just thank you to all of you for working so hard to get our youngest learners back, and let's continue our success with our 3rd through 5th graders. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Next up is Sean Silk.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for taking the comment question. There's been a lot of parents who've been very eloquent on this point, and I just wanted to emphasize that our family and many families that we've spoken to, in the very high 90 percentile, support the in-person learning and expansion of the waiver. Without going into all the details, I just want to quickly say that contrary to what Mr. Carney thinks with respect to the grade level learning here, the upper grades, it's a total disaster. And I don't know what parents he's surveying. Perhaps you should send out the surveys again. It is great, though, to know that the teachers union is participating and listening into this, because I hope you hear the hostility that many of the parents feel that you're doing to the kids and leaving them behind in the rest of the country where many schools are open, and indeed in the district right next door in Hillsborough, okay? You're talking about kids in the same grade level. It is totally absurd that our children are not in school. With respect to the waiver, though, pointedly, the hybrid, quote unquote, hybrid instruction, which is 1 day a week for 2.5 hours in the red tier, I don't know how that got so incorrectly labeled as a hybrid instruction for 2.5 hours. What is required to expand the waiver, and are vaccines being considered, given that more than likely with Johnson & Johnson and some of the other approvals, all of the teachers being in 1B will be able to be vaccinated if they accept it. Finally, on that point, with respect to any teacher that feels contrary to having children in class being educated as they really should, do they not have the option of giving up their seat and having substitutes come in and teach until they feel safe enough to be in the environment, notwithstanding the PPE and the various other requirements that have been put forward and have been observed? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. President Kendall, give us 1 moment.
No problem.
Next up is Leslie Beatty.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you to the board for considering the 3 through 5th waiver. I have a 3rd and 5th grader, and I'm in full support of kids going back to school. I think our teachers have done an excellent job, but online school is no substitute for the in-person experience for all the reasons that others have mentioned. And I'm also very supportive of revisiting the BIS waiver to get them back in class more often.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. And that was our last public comment. President Kendall?
All right, thank you, Kirsten. So now we can have an opportunity to discuss or ask Superintendent Matt Benitez to comment on any of the comments, and then we should make a motion. So is there does anyone want to make a comment or ask a question? Nope. Okay. Okay. So should we go ahead with making a motion for the 3rd to 5th waiver? I think that we, in my opinion, we saw, the letters that we've written recently have been about our not having local control over this issue. And this 3rd through 5 waiver gives us that control that we need to have consistency with our county counterparts. Does anyone want to make a motion, or?
I'll make a motion to add 3 through 5 to the waiver with the intent to start classes back after winter break, which is February 22nd. Is that right? February 22nd? That was the date? Okay.
Okay, so Trustee Reed made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Trustee Wong made a second. All in favor of expanding the waiver to include grades 3 through 5?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes and we will move on. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so item 19.4 is next, and we're talking about the curriculum adoption cycle. And this is Assistant Superintendent Marla Silversmith presenting.
Yes, good evening again. In 2019, we came forward to the board with an adoption cycle and a plan on how we would adopt materials. One of the components of that plan was to invite stakeholders from parent groups and including the board to be on those adoption committees, should they choose to be on them. President Kendall, you currently served last year and are currently serving on our science adoption committee. One of the things that we realized this year is with science and math going for a full adoption next year, that we had some holes we needed to look into. So this year we are looking for a trustee to join our committee for English language arts and English language development, as well as social studies. So that's 2 different committees. And then next year it would be the science committee, President Kendall, that you are on. And we also would like a volunteer to join us for our math adoption.
Volunteer for all of them. If others want to join though, can you guys hear me? I'm losing.
We can hear you. Yes, we can.
We're good.
Okay. So if others don't want to do it, I would happily do them all. But particularly would love to do language arts and social studies.
All right. So that's science and language arts. And then we have social studies and the math.
Oh, I said social studies.
Oh, you said social studies. Okay, so there are 2 ones. There's ELA and then the social studies. So you want to do the social studies one?
I'd prefer language arts and social studies.
I'd prefer social studies.
Okay, so they're 2 different ones. Okay.
Yeah. So Lisa will do language arts. I'll do social studies.
All right. So then we have the math curriculum adoption.
I can potentially try to help with that.
Okay, so Deepak will do math. So I'm doing science. Lisa's doing the English language arts. Kate is doing social studies, and Deepak is doing math.
And I'm sorry, it's not only English language arts, it's also our Spanish language arts. So it's both. But I didn't want to leave our Spanish teachers out and our bilingual parents that are here. Thank you.
Language arts.
Right, language arts works, English and Spanish. Thank you. We will forward you all invitations and give you more information. Thank you very much.
And this is so exciting. I'm so excited to see all this happening and see us moving forward with all these curriculum adoptions. So thank you.
Absolutely. We're very excited too. Thank you.
All right. So now we're on item 20.1 and we have the BSD budget update presentation.
Thank you, President Kendall. So I am going to be sharing my screen, and I won't be able to see you, but I would ask that if you have any questions, just interrupt me. I'm going to be moving fairly quickly. This is an update from the town hall budget presentations, as well as the presentations given to staff, BCE, PTA council, and some of the PTA meetings at sites. So this is an update based on what we heard at the January budget proposal by the governor. And so I'm going to screen share, and feel free just to verbally interrupt me if you have any questions. Great. So President Kendall, could you just confirm that you're seeing my screen at this point?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Fantastic. Thank you. So as of the January budget proposal from the governor, the changes that we're making to our budgetary projections are those proposals that he's making that we're getting a high degree of indication that are going to go through the legislature and be approved in May and adopted in the state budget's proposal in June. And so this first slide, and this slide deck is available online attached to the agenda for those of you that have expressed a lot of interest. During the town halls, I've added some items in here which sort of reflect some of those requests and interests. So this is actually what we call the dartboard. And these are the assumptions. So one of the questions was, where do districts come up with their assumptions to put into their budget proposals? And so this is actually the School Services of California dartboard. So these are the baseline assumptions that all school districts in the state of California use. The one that's highlighted here, of course, is right here, and that is the statutory COLA. The governor's proposal, this line used to be zeros all the way across. And of course, here you see that next year, the proposal is almost 4%. And although our annual costs go up between 6 and 8% a year, having all of these be zeros to actually doing a catch-up COLA this coming year significantly impacts the revenues for the district, so that it helps us close that deficit in the coming years. It doesn't entirely take care of it, but it does actually address about 20% of the deficit in the next 2 years, which is good news, especially since we're fairly confident at this point that this COLA will pass through the state legislature. This slide just illustrates another question that I heard a lot in the town halls, which I think I erroneously assume at this point that, you know, folks understand what is an LCFF district. That stands for Local Control Funding Formula. And this is the actual formula that answers the question of how much money do we get per student? So you read this simply by saying, what grade is the child in? And then at the far right, you can see if the child attends 100% of the school year, the amount of money that's sent to the district by the state. Of course, that's if the child attends 100%. Our attendance ranges between 95 and 97% a year. And so this would be 100%. So you just modify that to about 95 or 97%, depending upon the child. But you can see that this year's base grant, we'll use K through 3 as an example. So children in grades K through 3, the baseline was 7702. The proposed COLA is going to add $296 per student possible for that to that base grant, for a total of $79.98. This is called GSA, grade span adjustment. And so only for grades K through 3, we get additional potential dollars as long as we keep our class sizes low in grades K through 3, which means that you have the total maximum dollar amount for a K through 3 student, for a 4 through 6 student, and of course for a 7th through 8th grade student. So this just sort of answers the question from a lot of community members of how much do we get per student as a school district.
Hey, Chris, can I ask a quick question on that slide?
Of course, go ahead.
I know this is LCFF. Is there anywhere to find out what a basic aid district would look like, a similar kind of graphic, just for comparison's sake?
So let's do a quick example of that. I'll try not to go too deep, but that's let me illustrate what that would look like. This same formula applies to a basic aid district. The difference is that 100%. So let's just look at K through 3. Let's say we have 1,000 K through 3 students, and so we would just multiply this by 1,000, and you'd have about $8.8 million, right? All a basic aid district means is that they collect enough in property taxes from that district's properties to send the entire $8.8 million to the school district. Now, the trick of a basic aid isn't this baseline funding. It's that anything in property taxes they collect over this amount, 100% of it goes to the school district. So if a basic aid district collects $9,200 per K through 3 student, then that district gets all $9,200. If they collect 10,000, if they collect 12,000, then whatever they collect per student goes to the district. So basic aid district funding can actually vary greatly. So this is the baseline that every district gets for these grade spans. Basic aid, it really depends upon how much in property taxes your county collects. And so, for example, there are basic aid districts that even get twice as much per student, but this is the minimum amount that every district in the state of California gets for these students. Our property taxes in Burlingame still don't cover this, what they call the minimum guarantee here. So our local property taxes make up the first portion, and then any shortfall between the first portion and our entitlement is currently made up by the state, and that's why we're called LCFF. Basic aid, that number just goes up from here. This is the minimum that would be received, and it could be some very wealthy basic aid districts can be 2 or 3 times that amount.
Okay.
It really depends upon how much taxes they're collecting.
Okay. Thanks.
So deferrals are still in place, but the good news of the January budget proposal by the governor is he is proposing to eliminate about 2/3 of the deferrals to 3/4 of them. It's interesting they call this a deferral pay down, as if they are somehow paying out the deferrals. Actually, what they're suggesting is just canceling the ones that were scheduled for next year. So how is that going to impact Burlingame? And a deferral, by the way, is instead of getting the actual money we're supposed to get for a month, they literally give us an IOU, and we don't collect that money until they have enough money left in the state coffers. And so in the meantime, we have to borrow money to make up the difference. And so you can see that the deferrals that are left in place are actually all for this school year now, and they're for the months of February through June. And you can see some percentages, but the big number here that we have to pay attention to is that we have about $6.2 million in operating cash that we have to make up from other places until they pay off these IOUs. So that means that this year we are going to be a little bit cash short. So we have the money on paper because we have the IOUs from the state, but those deferrals are in place, and they're saying that they're going to get us that money sometime in 21-22. They haven't given us an exact date yet, but they're saying sometime next year we'll pay you back. So this was the last multi-year projection that we shared with the community in all of our town halls. And again, we can see that this excessive spending, so this is revenues, annual expenses, and then the difference between the two. And if this is a number in the negative, then we are spending more than we're bringing in. And our original stated goal was that we wanted to fix this number right down here, 2 years out, because we always have to show the current year plus at least 2 additional years, and that we can cover all of our expenses. So this was our goal, was to reduce this deficit and to balance out these budget years so that we weren't getting dangerously low with our reserves. And so this was the general fund picture, which is what we're required to report out on. We always report on our general funds, unrestricted. And you can see on the next slide, watch the 22-23 school year, that with the COLA, you can see that our projected deficit is going down, and I'm actually seeing an error on this slide. It should actually be right here. But you can see that our projected deficit, because of the COLA, goes down significantly, so that our deficit is about 25% less than it was projected previously. Now, one of the questions in the town hall was, what does it look like if we look at all funds? Because some of the folks that work in finance in the district, community members, were saying, well, why do we just look at unrestricted funds? And that's because in school budgets, the unrestricted side actually isn't allowed to accrue to the next year. So any negative funds you have, any negative balances, you have to pay off with the general fund before you can close each fiscal year. But I just wanted to show an all funds picture. So we did put together, just because it might help folks to understand, we did put together an all funds perspective, just so you can see the difference. You can see that even though this adds a lot to revenues and expenses, because now we're accounting for the restricted side, you can see that the deficit doesn't actually change significantly. There's a minor difference in the deficit of about $100,000, and that's in something called STRS and PERS on behalf payments. And they're basically pension contributions happening on the restricted side that we have to make up for from the general fund at the end of the year. But it's not a big amount. And so, but I did want to illustrate that just so that folks could see an all funds picture, because that was one of the questions from some of the folks that work in finance in the community. And again, the January proposal. So if we were to get the funding that's being suggested by the governor, this is the impact it would have over the course of the next 3 years. Again, our deficit isn't entirely taken care of, but it's reduced it by about 25 to 20%, depending upon the year. So a good overall bit of news from the state. And that means that although we still have to address the issue, that addressing the issue got to be a little bit easier than the task we were faced with previously. Now, are we 100% sure that this is all going to happen? No, it's just the best indications from the state that we have at this point. we are confident at this time at putting in the COLA, the cost of living increase annually.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah, this is positive news. And as we talked about in the town hall, education funding is quite volatile. So yeah, this is a really great summary, and I'm glad to see the Fund 17 money that we'll be setting aside in the reserves. And I guess we'll talk about that later in the policy.
Yeah, so typically I think one of the things that's causing confusion, President Kendall, is that people look at the bottom line, the ending fund balance, and we don't really break it out as far as what's in that number. So it just looks like a big number, right? We just have these millions of dollars sitting in our ending fund balance. So that is inclusive of a number of things. It includes this 3% statutory reserve. That's the state requires us to always have 3% reserves on hand. And it's 3% of what? People always say 3% of what? It's 3% of all your expenditures annually. So it's the all funds picture of expenditures. We have to have 3% of that number. Additionally, the school board's policy locally is to keep another 7%. But the problem with leaving it all in Fund 1 and not really differentiating is then you can't tell what it's specifically reserved for. And so we're going to move the locally designated 7% to another fund, Fund 17, and Fund 17 is actually called the Reserve Fund. So it makes a lot of sense that we move our reserves to Fund 17, so it eliminates the confusion of, is that money essentially spoken for or not? And we can then annotate our multi-year projection to state what the statutory 3% would be so that people can just do some quick math. The other reserve policy that's being recommended is that because we do have a liability, we have a wonderful gift that's given to us in a grant form every year from BCE. It's up to about $2.4 million a year, but almost 100% of that is now salaries and benefits. And so we have to be cautious, and districts with large foundations are suggested to put additional funds in reserve in the event that there's ever a shortfall, because districts have a lot of legal restrictions on still having to keep people on payroll even if they have a funding shortfall. And so we need to set aside some money in the event that that ever happens as well.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions?
Just a quick kind of process question. So I know we have the working session on February 24th to talk about the budget. So what is kind of the next steps as far as what we do now?
So there's two more meetings. So at the February 23rd meeting, I think that's the date off the top of my head. At the February 23rd meeting, which is a study session, and we've published that date pretty far and wide. I know that we're talking about budget, so this is always a fun observation to make. We went from 260 participants to 130 during a budget presentation. So come on, man, budget's exciting. But I just find that funny when that happens. So the next step is that the study session will be looking at reductions, so recommended reductions from administration for the board to consider and ask questions about. We'll be looking at what those reductions will do to our funding and to our multi-year projection. And then if after the board's questions, we will actually be bringing the legal required paperwork to our March 9th meeting for the board to actually act on. So the time to actually discuss the reductions to expenditures will be at the February 23rd study session. So we'll be bringing specific positions and savings to the board for reductions. The board will give any input that they want in public session at that time. A study session is a board meeting. It's just a board meeting to discuss a single topic. And then based on that, we will bring all of the legal requirements to the March 9th meeting for the board to vote on. So really the discussion opportunity is February 23rd, and the actual motions to direct us to do all of the legal processing will be at the March 9th meeting. But really the time for discussion, like I said, is at the February 23rd.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
That's an open meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, all business, including reductions or additions to budget, must be carried out in open session.
Any other questions? or comments? No. Okay, this is an informational informational item.
One quick one. Can I?
Oh yeah, go.
It's not a big one. At what point are we able to feel certain that that money is coming from the governor?
Great question. So the next big budget date from the state is called the May revise. So after the January budget proposal from the governor, between that date and usually around May 18th or 19th, the governor and the legislature are basically haggling as far as what the deal will be, how much of the governor's budget proposal the legislature will come in with, or whether they want to change it at all. And so they usually argue that out by mid-May, and SSC and FICMAT give Ms. Park and I an update on that day, as well as all CBOs and superintendents in the state. And then the weird thing is that the state then has to, whatever that haggling ends up with, whatever the agreement is, the state government has to adopt their budget prior to the end of June. But of course, we have to adopt our budget at our first board meeting in June, before the end of June as well. So we actually have to adopt before the budget goes into law. So we take our best guess, which comes from mid-May. And so I know it seems a little odd. If the May numbers are off, that's why in mid-August, if they were off from adoption, we bring back a 45-day revise, which then revises any numbers that the government adopted that we didn't foresee.
Okay. So
does that make sense? That's a very complicated
it's so backwards, but it makes. Thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
All right, I think we can move on to the next item now. 20.2, the 2020-21 safety plans.
Hey everyone, it's going to be Tim Berry who will be presenting. He's our student and community engagement coordinator. Tim?
There I am.
Hi,
Hello,
Tim.
everybody. My name is Tim Berry. As Heather said, I am the student and community engagement coordinator with the district. I am here to present the comprehensive school safety plans. Per education code, every year by March 1st, these plans must be updated and approved to the County Office of Ed. These plans are developed by each school site, working with their school site council, which usually includes the principal, their classified staff, some teachers, some parents. And a lot of this safety plan is driven from the Big Five from the county for how we operate schools and how we operate safety. So I'm here tonight to present the plans. In my process of developing these, two trustees have brought to my attention 3 things they would like updated in the plans. I just want to let you know what those are so we can make those available. One was Trustee Wong had brought to my attention that the board policy on child abuse prevention was previous version from 2010, not the one from 2020 from February. So I will update that. And the other 2 were a request from Trustee Kendall for a page in the McKinley safety plan to be redacted of 3 slides that had some Zoom links that teachers used when they first started the return to school procedures to be redacted out of the information. And the last one was Franklin had neglected to include their hybrid learning model in their overall plan. But otherwise, the rest of the plans were complete with updated board policies and board reviews for this year. And I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you for doing all of this work. I know it's a lot of work and in the middle of everything else going on. I just appreciate you guys taking the time and going through these and updating them. So thanks.
Tim, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for your report. I'm also wondering if it's not this year, I don't think it would be a good thing to do, but next year or the following to re-engage with training on CERT with our local firefighter or fire
Absolutely. I sit on the resiliency committee with the city. We meet quarterly, and that is a discussion. We talked about some CERT trainings involving students in some of those trainings. So yes, that is something we're looking at next year when we're out of this COVID mess, and we can engage more students and teachers in using our school sites for some of those activities. So it is on the horizon for next year.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, could you, I think one question I had was about the emergency backpacks. Could you talk about how they're maintained?
So the emergency backpacks are maintained by each site. So each school site has their red backpacks that they have all their important information in. So I'll do spot checks to go see schools, but you can always see them all there when they're ready to go. When we were not in COVID, I would participate in some earthquake drills or some evacuation drills and just monitor to make sure that all the students knew where they were going, they had all their supplies, and teachers had all their supplies. So those are updated per school site on a regular basis by the sites.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you to all the sites for adding in the hybrid information. That I know that was extra work and is greatly appreciated. Does anyone else have any comments? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate all your hard work on this. Okay, so
are these up for approval?
Oh, right, these in action. Thank you, Trustee Reed. Okay, yeah, so this is an action item and we need to approve these safety plans. So do I have a motion to approve the 2020-21 safety plans?
A motion to approve the 2021 safety plans.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Trustee Mudd. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so a second from Trustee Reed. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that everybody? Yes, okay. It's passed.
Okay.
Now 20.3. The America Furniture Contract. And there is Tim Ryan.
Hello, Superintendent Benitez and trustees. I'm here tonight to talk about the VS America Furniture Contract. Omnia Partners is a joint powers authority, which allows us to buy at best price furniture. In March, there was an election for Measure O that got us some funds in order to do projects. The board decided to move forward. One of those projects is being new furniture district-wide. We built on the work done in 2018 and 19 when we had committees at Washington and Roosevelt looking at furniture at the K-5 classrooms. In 2019, the BIS selected furniture. All of those three committees selected the same furniture, and so we're building upon that work. We did, starting in October, have meetings at every school site. We had 2 meetings per school site with a committee as well as a principal. We then pivoted and had grade level meetings, therefore creating a standard set of furniture for TK, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. We then went on to have additional meetings with 6, 8 art, RSP, RTI, SDC, and vocal music, so we could develop furnishings to address their unique settings. And tonight, we're presenting that initial batch of 8 quotes for furniture from VS America that represents tables and chairs. We'll be coming back to the board in the future with storage and soft seating. But tonight, staff is seeking approval for the contract in place for $1,460,002.79.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Well, Tim, I want to thank you for the thoughtful process and putting this all together. I know you put a lot of thought into the furniture and making sure you had all the, stakeholders involved and thinking about the best for the education of our children. So thank you. This is an action item. So do I have a motion to approve the America Furniture Contract?
I move to approve the American Furniture Contract. I missed the word there.
VS.
All right. Do we have a second?
I can second it.
Thank you, Kate. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so our next up is item 21.1. And
Thank-
this, oh, wait, yes?
No, I was just saying, thank you, President Kendall. So 21.1, we actually have a couple of members of the Burlingame Education Association's executive board. A while back, so Ms. Silversmith and I actually meet with the entire executive board now monthly, and it was 1 or 2, I think it was 2 months ago now, that they requested that the board agendize a union report on its future board agendas, similar to what some other school districts do. So I spoke with yourself and whoever was serving, I believe it was Trustee Wong, on our agenda setting meeting, and we did agendize this item for the union to make the request and explain the rationale. And then the board just can discuss and provide me with any direction as far as making future agenda adjustments. I do want to note before BEA starts that I did reach out and we spoke twice to CSEA, and CSEA appreciated the opportunity, but has at this time decided that they don't want to make the same request.
Thank you.
So I believe we have Brian McManus and one other person from the executive board of BEA to discuss the request with the board tonight.
Leslie Sloan is also presenting.
Great, thank you, Ms. Silversmith.
Hi, Brian and Leslie.
Good evening.
Brian, we can't hear you.
I do this all day. I don't have a formal speech prepared, but when I was reflecting, thinking about what I was going to say today, it just reminded me back. This is a battle. It's not a battle, but it's a feeling. It's an emotion. It's a strong emotion that the teachers have. That we have no outlet, no voice, nobody other than our direct supervisors to really voice our concerns and our issues to. We feel that communication is one way in the Burlingame School District, and that goes from the top down. And we feel that we are the face of the program and appreciate all the praise and support that you've given us tonight just about the reopening of the schools. But we also feel that we don't have any voice when it comes to decision making, and we feel that lots of times we're not heard when we do come to board meetings and speak during the open sessions. And it's been a problem for a long time. I know we dealt with it about 4 years ago, and we made the liaison committee, but that seems to be taking a back seat, where the meetings aren't very consistent, and they seem to be take second place to other district responsibilities. So I just, and it all sort of came to a head when we were having a meeting a couple months ago, and we realized that the administrators at the sites had a time to share what they were feeling and how things were going for their organization and their group. They're just a way to voice their collective opinion, but the teachers, we don't have that at all. And so it was suggested that we ask if we could present at the beginning of the board meetings also. Leslie, is there anything you wanted to add? Or
With the public comments that we've made as individual teachers and union members in the past couple of months, I think it was the opportunity for the community to hear us really for the first time publicly. And there seemed to be a lot of ask by the board as well as the community to hear from us as a union, as a collective unit. And so this seems like the perfect opportunity to be able to do that, to provide a statement at a board meeting with the voice of the Burlingame Education Association and its teachers.
Thank you. Does the board have questions?
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for both being here. Hi, Ms. Sloan. Can I ask how often the board liaison meetings happen?
I believe they're originally scheduled for every other month.
They were originally scheduled for 4 times a year, and we modified it this year to be 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's been meeting the same amount that it's always met. And so other things that we've done is that instead of the president of the union meeting just with the superintendent behind closed doors, I asked that I meet with the entire executive group every month with Heather and Marla, which we've been doing, which has been very productive. And that's actually how this request came about. Brian and Leslie and the executive group said, how would we do that? And I said, I can ask the board to agendize it, and you were happy to agendize it. So that's how things like this happen. So I don't know the history that Brian's referring to, but actually there's been a lot of engagement back and forth this year, and I hope it continues.
I think it's a great idea. I'm glad you guys are here to speak.
I agree. We added the principals, I think 3 or 4 meetings ago, and they're speaking as well. And I love hearing from more people. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we also have the principals rotating. So would teachers rotate?
Well, that's what we were thinking, that it would be on a site rotation, that it would be one site would present at a meeting. I mean, we used to have a tradition where in order to get involvement in board meetings, a school site would sign up to attend the meeting. So now we're thinking this would be another way. It's just like each site would present at the beginning of each meeting and rotate through that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very happy to hear a teacher report at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Deepak, do you have any comment?
No, I agree with everything you said. And just to make sure I understand properly, so is the concern or issue that you don't feel that the existing transmission mechanisms are sufficient? Because I haven't gotten the sense that the principals or administrators have not been kind of sharing the teacher perspective to us. And so if you think that it really will add to the discussion, that's fine. But I haven't gotten the sense that we're unaware of the challenges that everybody's facing, and that it's a complicated period. We understand that. Yeah, and I welcome kind of hearing more of those perspectives if we're not hearing them through the other channels. So if the issue is that we're getting lost in translation, or it's not being delivered appropriately, then of course we want to fix that. But I haven't gotten that sense yet. And so if that is an issue, let us know and we can try to figure out how to improve that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think this is a good start. I think I agree with Chris that there's been a lot of changes this year in the communication, and especially with the new board members. I think that's a lot more open to listening to new ideas or our ideas. And so I think this is a good step forward. Let's see how it goes. I mean,
yeah, so one thought would be that we, do it till June, and then maybe we review our agenda in general, with the reports and see how it's going, or not.
Well, I think that sounds great. I think just to give it a try and see how it goes,
Yeah.
and see what the teachers at the different sites saying, if they don't think if it's productive or if it's.
So I think, yeah, so that's what we're thinking. The thought would be that we could have these reports and then revisit in June and discuss how it's going.
Do we need to vote, or?
I guess we need to make a motion. It's an action item.
You can actually, you can just direct me.
Do you have direction? Okay.
Yeah, so President Kendall, folks might not actually be aware. So the agenda is set in one of two ways. So it's usually the president of the board, which in Burlingame we rotate. So it's a different person every year, sets the agenda with myself and one additional trustee. So there's three of us that set the agenda for each month's meeting. The other way something can be agendized is that during public session, if three or more board members ask that something be agendized, that's the other way that things get agendized. So all you have to do is simply tell me to agendize it, and I'll just make sure that Ms. Tiktakis and I include it on every agenda. Would you like it to appear before or after the principal's report? That's usually when it would appear.
Does anyone have any strong feelings here?
There's no standard. It typically appears at the beginning of a meeting.
I mean, I don't have a strong opinion.
Okay.
Brian, do you have a strong opinion?
No, I don't. I think it matters.
Flip a coin.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it usually goes first, then how about it goes first then?
Yeah. So the direction that I'm hearing pretty consistently that no one objects to it being agendized. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the discussion and the willingness to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and speaking, Brian and Leslie.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so this leads us to item 20.1, and we're hitting the end of our agenda.
We are almost there. Yes. So trustees, this is a second revision to board policy 3105. And it's essentially the red line is attached, and essentially not only are we suggesting that we move the local 7% reserve but over the next several years that we also work to fully reserve a special reserve for a strategic foundation support. In other words, that we match in the reserve whatever is annually granted by BCE in the event that there's a shortfall. The way that districts work, as you've all become very aware this year with our budgeting, is that we only have one opportunity annually to decrease costs. So if there's ever a shortfall in August of the BCE grant, we would have to actually have a place to make it up from. And currently we don't do that other than just in whatever general fund reserves we might have available. The issue with that this year, of course, is that we were looking at potentially within 2 years not having enough reserves any longer, which was going to put us in a real bind, especially since I know compounding that we were also concerned about how fundraising would go this year. So we heard the great news the other day at, I believe, Trustee Reed, we were at PTA Council, and it looked like fundraising is actually on target this year. So I'm feeling like we somehow, I don't know, we won the lottery or something. Like in a really rough financial year, BCE is still on track, but this would provide a backup in the event that there was ever a shortfall in the foundation grant.
Yeah, so it seems like a fiscally prudent measure to take with the volatility of education funding.
Yes. Now, anything in Fund 17, the 7% or this strategic reserve, the board still has the ability to access any of those special reserves by a simple plurality of the board. So a vote of 3 or more. In the event that we do get into some sort of fiscal trouble, you can release any of that money by at least three members voting to release it.
At this point in time, are we able to fund it, or it has to build over the years?
Yeah, we're gonna have to probably build it over a couple of years, Trustee Wong. That's a good question. We don't have enough money to do everything this year, at least at this time. But as we have surplus in our fund balance, then we will be trying to make contributions until it's fully funded. And then at that point, we just have to keep our 3% statutory reserve and fund balance, which gives you a more accurate picture, especially if we start listing what 3% is at the bottom. Then it'll give you a more accurate picture of just how much cushion you have in the event that we have a special request or something special that Ed Services or another department wants to do, that we'll know exactly how much additional funding is available for any one-time requests.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Any other comments or questions? Florence, you didn't have any edits?
I could be off my game, but I didn't notice anything.
Okay.
I doubt you're off your game. We just lucked out with one, that's all.
So do we have a motion to approve board policy 3105?
I'll make a motion to approve board policy 3105 reserve balance.
And I'll second it. Okay, so Florence made the motion, Elizabeth made the second, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Great.
Now we are on to,
And-
yeah.
I was saying thank you. And yes, the last item. So the only items that I still have on future board requested items, at this point, we have the renaming. I'm agendizing discussion, the community group that would like to have BIS considered for renaming. I'm going to look towards May or June. We also have employee housing discussion, which is going to be agendized probably in July or August. And currently those are the only outstanding issues that have been requested that we haven't agendized.
Great. Does anyone else have does anyone else on the board request an item for future meetings? No?
I think my only question, and I don't know if this would be added or this is just something that will come up as vaccinations happen and as guidance is changing from the state, if it does change going into the 21-22 school year, at what point do we think that will be something that we're talking about?
As far as different conditions for 21-22?
Yeah.
We really don't know. So they have it set up right now that the county superintendent meetings are the meetings I'm in right before I come into board meetings now. And so that's exactly what we were discussing before I came in tonight. And that's what our discussion has shifted to is the disconnect when we met with our local representatives to sort of share a little bit with everybody. So Trustee Reed and President Kendall and I met with office staff of our local senator and assembly person. Their working assumption broadly at this point that they shared with us was that after vaccinations, that school would be returning to a more normal instructional footing next year. Now, that doesn't mean that schools will look the same way, that we might still be wearing masks and encouraging hand washing and doing temperature checks. But their assumption was that it would look more like normal instruction next year. And of course, we shared with them the concern that we were having that, first of all, this year that the goalpost kept moving on us, and that was extremely frustrating for our community, and they very much understood that. But also that the current health and safety standards were written assuming no vaccination, and that they needed to revise those because structurally a lot of school districts would not actually be able to operate as normal given the current guidelines. So to illustrate that point, for example, if we have all adults vaccinated and the expectation is that we be back in classrooms teaching as normal, the 6 foot, I call it social distancing. I think they call it personal distancing. We couldn't fit enough students in a classroom to actually make school go, nor did we have enough classrooms or enough teachers to make school go in an average school district. And they were actually quite surprised by that. No one had picked that up. And so the idea that we would be back as normal next year before they had a chance to revise guidelines didn't necessarily match up. And so they appreciated that. And they asked us to maybe think about what other things would need to be looked at. Now, I did notice in the January 14th criteria that came out just a couple of weeks ago, they changed the distancing guidelines. It's sort of weak language, but they basically said 6 feet is fine, but if you can't do 6 feet, you can do as few as 4 now. So it is changing. And we aren't quite sure, well, how many kids could we fit into a classroom with a 4-foot distance? We just haven't had a chance to get a tape measure out and measure that out. But it certainly wouldn't be enough for our upper grades. So there's things like that that folks really need to consider. I just don't know when the state is frankly notoriously slow to issue clear guidance. My big concern right now is that if that clarity of guidance for us doesn't come out until, let's say, July, right? Then we might not have clarity on next year until whenever they announce that guidance. So that was what we really tried to highlight for our local representatives, that we need more information, and based on the expectation that we can be back normal, what are they going to do to make sure that the regulations change so that we have a chance to do that for our community? Right. And they were actually, they appeared, I don't know if Trustee Kendall or Trustee Reed, you have more to add, but they actually appeared surprised by that, and that they hadn't really considered that guidance, there was no schedule to issue new guidance. So I don't know where that leaves us, to be honest with you, other than I was surprised that I was sort of hoping they were ahead of us, but I didn't get that impression.
No.
But
okay, so we're still waiting.
I'm guessing that we will hear something preliminarily. The May revise is not just a big time for budget, but it's a big time for logistics and policy updates, because it's the end of the legislative session in May and June. So I'm guessing that's when we'll get answers. The pinch that's going to put on us as a school district is getting guidance in May or June, when our families are going away for the summer, as well as the majority of our employees. Really doesn't give us any time to prepare or notify families, right? So that's actually, I think that was, if I remember our conversation correctly, that was our plea, is that the sooner we can get information to share with our community, the better, instead of leaving everybody up to the last minute to try to figure out what the year is going to look like.
Right.
Is that an accurate assessment of the plea we made?
Yeah. And I actually, when we spoke to the county school board officials, that's the plea they're all making. So it's consistently coming from everyone.
Yeah, it would be great. I don't know what the system is to get other counties. So, right. So like one of what is it, 48 counties making that plea is great. I don't know how we spread the word, but if we don't get guidance sooner rather than later, it's going to be a really rough year again.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so regular updates, but that's going to happen as you can. So.
Yeah, as soon as I get information, I will continue to share it. I promise.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, let's adjourn this meeting at 8:36.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody have a good night.
It's good to see you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.